And welcome to Education, Leadership, and Beyond, Surviving and Thriving. My name is Andrew Murata, host of the show, and I am excited to be here tonight. It is show number 237, live here on Facebook. Proud member of the Education Podcast Network and Voice Ed Radio Canada, wherever you are taking in your podcast. I'm excited to be with you, and thanks for tuning in to Education, Leadership, and Beyond. We are going to meet Captain Art Ladley tonight from the U.S. Coast Guard. He has a long history there, a long story there. He is a Staten Island native, and I'll get to tell a little story of how we got this going in a minute. But before we get started, a little commercial for the World Education Summit for all you educators watching. The World Education Summit is happening March 22nd. Literally, that's what it is. It is leaders, educators from around the world, around the globe on a virtual summit. And I am thrilled to be part of it. I will be doing a session on surviving and thriving, how to, be in the pressure as when I was a referee and handle those pressures. So the World Education Summit, check that out. And if you are a leader, I highly recommend it, and get yourself signed up. Just Google World Education Summit and it'll bring you to that. All right, let's get started. It is show number 237. One of the things about the show, it is live. So you can jump in. You can jump in the comment box. I know Art's family will be tuning in, Art's daughter. And so let's get rolling. So the opening concept is the instant connection. I was in Portland, Oregon in the fall, and this woman came up to me after the presentation and said, "You need to meet my father." And I said, "Well, who is that?" And she said, "Well, he's from Staten Island, and that's Art Ladley." And this was from Robin. Robin is his daughter, and we had an instant connection. Right here, I was from New York in Oregon. And she came up to speak to me about her dad, because her dad was from Staten Island and her dad is a leader, and said, "You need to have him on your podcast." And here we are, right? It was an instant connection. So the point is, the leadership point, the takeaway is make those connections with people, with programs, with things that, you might not think you can have a connection to, right? Art started and think that we had a connection. Here's this guy from Staten Island in Portland, Oregon, but bam, she made that connection and she came up to me, and I'm so grateful for that. And speaking of instant connections, let me bring my new friend from Staten Island on here, Art Ladley. Art, welcome to Education, Leadership, and Beyond.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. I know you had a little bit of an injury today, and you're still fighting through it. But I appreciate that, and thanks so much for being part here, Art. How are you?
I'm good. I'm waiting for the springtime.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that could be
it's been
tough
quite
in
chilly here.
Tacoma,
Wet.
Washington, at any time, right? You're coming to us from Tacoma, Washington, correct?
That's right. Yeah, we're about 30 miles south of Seattle.
Okay. So, Art, let's get started. You are a retired captain in the U.S. Coast Guard. You served many years in there. When I say the word leadership to you, and we're going to go through many of your leadership experiences in the Coast Guard, what are the first things that come to mind?
Well, I think one of the most important things is to respect your followers.
Hmm.
Respect your followers. Okay. And remember, you may be the leader, the manager, whatever they call you, the aircraft commander. You're part of the team. You're part of the team. That's the most important thing. Never forget that. So.
Art, give us a little bit of your background. We're going to get to know you as the show goes on here, but give us your background here. Again, I mentioned the Coast Guard, but
Well,
tell us a little bit about yourself.
well, in my last year of high school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do as far as college was concerned. My parents said, "You need to go to college. That's important if you're going to be successful in life." So I was talking to my grade advisor one afternoon at Newdorf High School on Staten Island, and she said, you might consider the Coast Guard Academy. I said, why? Couldn't even spell Coast Guard Academy then. But she said, well, one thing about it is you don't need a political appointment. You just have to take the 2-day exam, and I'm sure with your records, you'll probably do well. And so the next thing I got an appointment, did my 4 years there. My first assignment was a ship out of Honolulu. Towards the end of that, the headquarters came out and said that looking for more aviators, who wants to apply? So the next thing you know, I was at Pensacola with the Navy, learning how to fly. I did basically primary and basic training there, and then went on to Corpus Christi for advanced training. And then the rest of my career was either at air stations and sometimes in staff positions in headquarters in Washington.
Wow.
So I really, flying for the Coast Guard was fun. I got all over the world, Far East, Europe, because we had units in those places that need to be bring people to, parts to, etc.
And so you were part of these wars that we fought all these years in our history.
Yeah, I did get to Vietnam, fortunately only for a few days, just bringing people and parts. The Coast Guard had a big role over there. They had set up navigation stations.
You're getting a call. You're getting a call here.
Yeah, right.
You're a busy guy.
Probably a spam. Yeah, it's a spam. Right.
Okay. Tell him
Sorry
you're not
about that.
interested.
Excuse me.
That's okay. You were
Yeah.
saying about Vietnam and the Coast Guard's role there.
Yeah, right. They were providing navigation assistance to the Air Force at that time, and also a bunch of boats up and down the rivers there to interdict the North Vietnamese for the various nefarious things that they were doing at that time. So
Yeah. Art, what were some things over your career, and you chose to stay in as in the Coast Guard, but what were some things that you remember that impacted your leadership as you grew into the captain role?
well, I think as you move along from station to station, you can see that you've learned a lot yourself from the flying you've done, from the people that you have worked with. You have seen what those people above you, what they are attempting to do and what they have done. And, hey, that gives me the incentive. I want to try to achieve that particular position. So the nice thing about the Coast Guard is, particularly aviation, it's a small community. And so when you move on to some other station, you're going to be with people some of them that you've been with before, which is a good thing in most cases. So, yeah. And of course, the things that the Coast Guard does, law enforcement, search and rescue, that type of thing, aids to navigation, so many more missions. But specifically the ones that I was involved in the Coast Guard, you felt of a sense of accomplishment doing those things.
Mm. Yeah. And Art, what were some things maybe that you saw that, maybe in some personnel that you said, I never want to lead like that, or I'm never going to do something like that? Did you ever have some negative things that you learned from?
Well, I remember some commanding officers that were, I thought, were too standoffish. They, they wanted to be the boss, but they didn't want to be part of the team.
Mm.
So that was not fun, I thought. So, yeah, not a good example.
Yeah. And that was the first thing you opened the show with about leadership, was that you were on the team. You're a member of the team.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're flying, like I was flying as the aircraft commander of a C-130 or of an H-3 helicopter, you've got a team of people, co-pilot, maybe a navigator, and then a crew of enlisted people with all these specialties. You rely on them to do their job. They rely on you to fly the airplane, get them to do the mission, and get back home. And so you have to respect these people.
Art, you are 90 plus years young. I appreciate you coming on here. You got the technology. I got some people that can't figure it out, and here you are. So, what would some things that you would say to some younger leaders? I became a principal in my 30s. What are some things that you would say to leaders that you've learned over a lifetime of leadership here?
Well, you need to know your people, feel comfortable with them so that they respect you. That's part of this team concept again. So
Yeah.
uh, know a little bit about them personally. So they're just not a body out there that you having working for you. So it works very well better when you know your people. That's for sure.
What else would you say?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to think of something else to add on to that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and how did you do that, right? Did you invite people to eat
Well,
with you? How did you do those things?
for example, when you're going on a mission, the first thing you do is, sometimes you really just got to get airborne and go someplace because somebody needs help, whether it's a ship or whatever, or a person. But you need to brief them. Where you're going, why, what you expect them to do, so they're prepared. Yeah.
Yeah.
For an example, one night, it was early in the evening, and it was out in Honolulu at the time. We got a call that there was a ferry boat from the Marshall Islands that was en route to Honolulu for major repairs. And at that particular time, they were about 400 miles southeast of Wake Island, and they were taking on water, and their bilge pumps didn't work. So they were in danger of sinking. Now, this was a relatively small ship, maybe 90 or 100 feet long, and with a crew of about 8 or 10. But so we had to fly 1,500 miles to get there.
Wow.
1,500 miles to get there. C-130 take about 5.5 hours, depending upon the winds. And so we got partway there, maybe about an hour out, flying at about 25,000 feet, and the pressurization control box, an electronic device, failed. So we had to descend, and there was about a 30-minute window there where I didn't know whether we could continue the mission, because if you're flying at a lower altitude, you're burning more gas in a C-130 turboprop. Yeah. That's just one of those things. So my flight engineer, who was quite a guy, and one of our crewmen, who was a warrant officer, who was just bored to get some flight time, who was very skilled in his technical field, the two of them got together, and they jury-rigged a fix to this thing. Now, a lot of times, somebody would say, well, Art, you just better turn around and go back home and let another crew do this job.
Yeah,
but
sure.
We were able to do it. We were able to get it. We found this guy. He was hardly making any speed at all, and he was concerned. We flew over him. We went up high and dropped a flare to light up the sky, come back down and dropped 3 pumps. And the first pump was about 50 feet from the ship, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
And we always have a long line with these pumps, so that if you can grab this line and you can pull it aboard. What the skipper of this ship actually dove over the side at night into the Pacific Ocean, swam to the pump, got a hold of the line, he came back and had one of his crew members help him get it back aboard. Half hour later, they had the flooding under control. And that was amazing.
Art, you literally have a lifetime of saving people there. I mean, one of the movies I love the best is that Saving Private Ryan story of when they went in and saved them. You had a lifetime of those experiences.
Well, but a lot of my compatriots have a lot more, let me tell you.
Yeah, sure. But you served a long time. Art, did you make a decision somewhere along the line to say, I'm going to stay in the service, I'm going to stay in the Coast Guard? Like, where did that happen, and when did that happen?
I was very fortunate. In fact, once you graduate from the academy, at that particular time, you were obligated to serve at least 4 years. Going to flight training added another 3 years.
Wow.
Then the Coast Guard sent me to graduate school at the Air Force Institute of Technology, where I was 19 months there, and I got a master's degree in electrical engineering.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so that tied on another 3 years. So by the time I had 10 years in, I was obligated for about 15.
And that was all service time. That was all
Yeah,
counting towards your service.
exactly right.
And they
Yeah,
paid for your school.
exactly right. I was very,
Wow.
very fortunate.
Yeah.
Thanks to my great advisor at New Dorp High School.
Yeah. Give New Dorp High School a shout out. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, how did you wind up on the West Coast and from being from Staten Island? How did you get
Well,
out there?
my first assignment was in Hawaii on a ship. Then I was back to flight training. Then I went to then I went to back to Hawaii again to fly. Then I went to graduate school. Then I went to North Carolina, Washington D.C., back to Hawaii, up to Port Angeles in Washington, Alaska, 2 tours in Alaska,
Oh my God.
Miami, Washington D.C., and then back out here. So my last assignment was here. So
And that's where you landed.
yeah, so my wife basically did 11 moves with me, and our kids too, of course.
Wow. Yeah. Holy cow. All right. You shared about your father being a New York City fireman and your grandfather was a New York City police officer. What were some lessons that you learned from them about service and helping other people?
Well, that was the key thing. Their work was involved in helping people,
Yeah.
the fire or that type of thing. Policemen, of course, you're trying to keep people out of trouble and help people when they're in trouble. So
Yeah.
uh, basically, the Coast Guard's mission is in helping people, helping our environment, that sort of thing. So
Yeah. Yeah. And did that help guide your decision to join? What did they think about it?
well, you know, things are moving so fast. When I was basically suddenly, the last few days as a senior in high school, since I graduated in January. I don't know if you remember, New York did that. I started high school in February, and then 4 years later graduated the last week in January. I don't know
Oh
whether they do
wow.
that in New York.
Yeah. Huh.
So there I was with college at some time in the future, maybe in that fall in 1950, which was an interesting year in itself because the Korean War started that summer. And so I got a job in working in the bank, Guaranteed Trust Company, 140 Broadway for a few months before I got my appointment to the academy. So I had that experience behind me too. That was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. All right. How about now? Again, you're some years removed from flying and that work. Are you following what's happening with SpaceX and pedestrians going into space and all that flight stuff? Are you still
Well,
involved watching that stuff or no?
when I was a teenager, I just loved to read these science fiction, those pulp magazines. They were,
Yeah.
and so I've always had a interest in space, and I basically read all the good science fiction authors like Arthur C. Clarke and people like that. And I always felt that we're going to go pretty far in space at some particular point, and we're making small steps right now. You look at what's happened in the last 100 years. It's just incredible. It's just
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
And say, how can you predict what's going to happen in the next 100 years? And I like to think at that particular time, we're going to go way out. We're going to way out because we don't understand the technology that's going to take us there yet.
It's coming, and they continue to advance it. And you look at the airlines and what they're doing with carbon emissions, and you look at they say in the 30s and 40s here they're going to be have zero emissions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Incredible. Well,
incredible.
of course, along that line, we have to worry about our environment.
You would think, yeah, you'd think, yeah. If you're watching the show live, certainly jump in with a question or a comment. There's a number of people watching. Art, again, you mentioned a number of places you've traveled. Where were some places? I mean, Hawaii, people talk just so wonderfully about. But where are some places that really stood out to you as amazing places?
Well, uh, in my first tour in duty in Hawaii, my flying tour there, uh, we had a monthly trip to support the Coast Guard Lorraine stations in the Central and Western Pacific, including Japan, the Philippines, and Korea. And we would stop for 3 days of R&R in Hong Kong.
Mm,
And that was a place that I loved to visit then. It's
even then, yeah.
This was in the late 50s. That's a long time ago. But times have changed. I've actually been back there since then, but that's been 20 years ago. And I just love to go there. And I was able to take my wife there at one particular time. The other place, of course, I would love to go, and I have been. By the way, one thing that I do is every Wednesday night, I will tonight, I have a Spanish class. I've been doing that for 17 years, and I had a wonderful teacher, and we have a nucleus of 5 students. We've been together almost that whole time.
Wow. Práctica hablar español.
Yeah.
Muy bueno.
Yeah.
Un
Yeah.
poco. Okay.
Actualmente.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
I love Spain, and our teacher has taken us there a number of times. So it's a beautiful country. The people love the food. I love the cities. Barcelona and Madrid, Bilbao. Yeah, wonderful places to go. So, and I like
Yeah.
Italy too. Italy,
Yeah.
loveless small hill towns.
Yes. I lived a year in Tuscany.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, the city, yeah, with the city of towers. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Art, you also mentioned about your faith and serving in the church. That's something that's been part of your life. You know,
Yeah, well,
being in the Coast Guard, you probably saw a lot of
yeah,
rough things over your time. Tell me about your
yeah.
faith and what that's meant to you.
I wouldn't call myself a religious person, but I believe a lot of the good things that our churches do. We've
Yeah.
always involved my wife and myself, usually in almost every church we've been at, in some form of outreach, helping people, food drives, bringing food to people, bringing food to food banks, that sort of thing.
Mm.
Uh, for a while, we had this special training called Stephen Ministry. The idea of that is to learn to work with people who are really in distress and they need someone to talk to. Not to talk at them, but to listen to them so they
Mm-hmm.
get everything off their chest. And it was interesting. And we each had the opportunity to work with people on that. Not an easy chore, but it was worthwhile. So.
All right, there's so many angles of service, and now again, your daughter Robin is serving on a school board, serving her community in that way. Uh, it's really inspiring to hear that. What would you say to our audience after a lifetime of giving? What did that give to you?
Well, on this planet, we have to help each other. We have to help each other in so many different respects. So, yeah, we have a great country here, and we have a great world. I think that's we talk about a lot of the problems that we have in races and stuff like that, and but by and large, all the people that I have met throughout my travels and time in the service, regardless of race, religion, whatever, I've enjoyed our relationships. That's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Art, I work in schools and the adults trying to teach, model, and show the kids respect. I have a couple of veteran teachers, right? You would say they're old school and they're trying to teach the kids respect, but there's just such a high level of disrespect for someone like yourself. Looking back at that, what does that do for you? Does that upset you? Does that bother you? What do you
It
think
it
about that?
it it does upset me. Our Spanish teacher, she's actually a full-time high school Spanish
Yeah,
teacher too.
well, yeah.
Uh,
Muy
she talks,
difícil.
she talks about that. She talks about that, and it's upsetting to her.
Yeah.
Uh, and you know, when I was in high school, you just listened to the teacher. You didn't go up the down staircase, that type of thing. You didn't want to have to go to Mr. Feinstein's office because you'd have detention or something like that, or something worse.
There was a fear, right? There was a respect level that was just different.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Um,
But
you know,
you
uh,
also learned you didn't have time to fool around and
yeah.
disrespect the teacher.
Well, my respect for the teachers today and the teaching staff, learning how to handle all these different things is so challenging. And
I don't know
you
how
know,
you
we
do it. I really don't know how you do it, but
yeah.
I'm thankful that you were there to try.
And we are, right? And I'm grateful for the educators that we work with. It was a different time when you grew up in school, and like you said, the students just listened, right? You went into a career of military service where it was yes, sir, and yes, ma'am, where you just followed your orders. It's just a different time now, and
Yes, it's
yeah, yeah.
it's hard to adjust.
And we've seen a lot of success stories like you of kids that we guided to the military who have turned out to be successful. Did the discipline that the Coast Guard gave you, was that something that was easy for you and you just kind of went along with it, or did you find some
Well,
challenges there?
that first month at the Coast Guard Academy was real hard, just like any of the military academies. And I I had a I think one of the upperclassmen said you have to go with the flow and remember that the people before you have done this,
Mm,
so don't give up.
yeah, yeah,
And it was not easy. It was not easy, but I'm thankful for that opportunity. That's for certain.
yeah. I used to referee art, and I had the Coast Guard in basketball one time, and the opposing team was chanting at them saying, "You're not Navy,"
Oh wow!
and they didn't like that.
Yeah, sure,
That got
sure,
under their
yeah.
skin a little bit. Yeah, yeah. Art, you have your family, your children, and you have your grandsons. You have two grandsons here, Nathan and Simon, and hopefully they're watching this. They'll see this. But when they talk about their grandfather, what are some things that you would hope that they would say about you?
Well, I'd say, Grandpa said, never stop learning. Never stop learning. That's a key. Read, listen, that type of thing. So uh, there are so many opportunities in this planet. Uh, you have to work for them. You have to work for them. There's no doubt about that. But if you have a chance to learn something new, different, keep at it. That's for certain.
That's good advice. That's good advice. Art, what was something that you wanted to share that I didn't ask you about?
Well, you did ask me a little bit about my family. You didn't, I was just want to put in a plug for my son,
Yeah.
Russ. Yeah, uh, he went to the University of Washington and uh, got into the fisheries program.
Hmm.
He had worked summers up in Alaska when he was in high school and in his early years of college too. And so he got his fisheries degree, and he's been with the Puyallup tribe of Indians for 34 years now, and he is the director of fisheries.
Wow.
And the Puyallup tribe is a big entity here in the state of Washington.
Yeah. Huh. That's interesting. And so tell me more about that. What is his role there?
Well, there's of course the concern of the Puyallup River, which has the salmon and steelhead going through it. Uh,
Mm.
the various bridges, dams that are on the river. He's in constant contact with the various uh, agencies that are involved with that sort of thing, particularly the Corps of Engineer and various agencies that have to do with
Yeah.
concerns for the fisheries in this area. So he's a busy man in that respect, but he
That's
loves
big
the
business.
outdoors.
Yeah, that's big business. Yeah. All right, let me ask you this question before we get to our rapid fire. Clearly, you've again lived a full life of service. You seem to be a very happy and content person. You've been
I'm
married a long
very
time, and
fortunate.
you've been alive a long time.
Yeah.
So let's start with the married part. What would be some secrets to marriage, some success points to marriage, being married so long and being successful there?
Well, I've been lucky, and my wife, of course, she's an Army brat, and so she was used to traveling. So that's never been a problem, and we're always looking forward to go to a new place. Uh, I think the before we got married at Schofield Barracks Chapel on Oahu, and my wife's family lived on Schofield, and we had to visit with the chaplain there before we got married. And he said, you know, every night you got to tell your wife, I want you to promise me this, tell your wife that you love her. And that's never been a hard thing for me to do.
Hmm. Sounds so simple, but it's so important, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And you remember that all these years later.
I couldn't forget.
All right. And now give us a secret here, a trick, a hack. You're in your 90s here. You seem sharp as a tick. What are some secrets to your longevity here and your health?
Drinking red wine, eating blue cheese.
Red wine and blue cheese, not a bad combination. Tell me about though. You have some moderation. What is your diet? I mean, you would tell me about things that have worked for you.
Well, boy, I like prime rib. Don't have it very often, but it's good. Like Italian food, I like Greek food. We have a good Greek restaurant close by. So
Okay.
the Greeks are famous for their good diets. So I think
Yeah.
the food they
Yeah.
get. So yeah.
Okay. I'm going to Greece and Italy the end of this month, so I'll try
Oh,
both of those.
wonderful, wonderful. Have you been there before?
I've been to Italy before. I'm not a world traveler like you, but I do have the travel bug, so I love it. I lived a year in Tuscany, which was an
Oh,
amazing year of my life. Yeah.
oh, that's incredible. What? And so you know the language a little bit then.
Parla un poco italiano, pero insieme con español. Ahora,
Yeah,
it's
that's
mixed
one.
with my Spanish. Yeah.
That's wonderful. In Italy, those little hill towns are really fun to go to. We
Yes.
really enjoy those.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Art, let's get to rapid fire.
Uh-oh.
This is an honor to have this conversation with you, and I thank you for your service and all that you've done. And now your children are going on and serving, and I appreciate Robin, coming right up to me. She says, "You got to meet my dad." So here we are. Yeah, this was great. Okay, Art, you mentioned about being a lifelong learner. The first question here, and these are rapid fire. The first thing that comes to mind. What is the last book that you read?
Oh, well, I think one of the last books that I read that I really liked was the biography of Harry Truman.
Hmm.
That's a wonderful book. He was an amazing president. We were fortunate to have him, I think, so at the right time. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Last
love reading historical biographies. They're fun, fascinating.
last last movie you saw.
The Martian. The Martian. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
that
a really great movie. Of course, I like science fiction anyway. So, but
that was Matt
it has,
Damon, right?
yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned a number of food. You're a food lover there. So, what is your favorite dish?
Well, I would say a good prime rib.
He likes the prime rib. I can't ask you your favorite place to travel. So, let me ask you. Give me your top three.
Oh, I think Spain and Italy are the top two. Uh, we've been fortunate to go to Asia. Of course, I'd love to go back to Japan again.
Mm.
That's a really the people and the topography, their theater. I like art. Yeah. One thing I didn't tell you, by the way, I don't know if my daughter told you, I do write poetry also.
Wow, you're
And
a
I
talented
finally had
guy.
a poem published last year. So
Really?
yeah.
Where can people find that?
Well, it was on a local magazine, in the local
Okay.
magazine. So yeah.
Well, if people watching, Robin, if you're watching, maybe you can put it in the chat here to get that link so people can check that out. Art, the best Coast Guardsmen are the best because fill in the blank.
Well, they save lives.
Wow. Wow. A journal or a blog you subscribe to? Do you get any monthly or weekly journals?
Well, I would say probably no. I mean, I'm on Facebook, that type of thing, but I
Yeah.
don't subscribe to a blog or that type of thing. So just
Well, I'm gonna sign you up for mine. How's that? And I'll
hey,
send you
that'd
mine.
be fun.
Education, leadership, beyond. You let me know how it comes out. I'm gonna write a blog about talking to you. This was great. All right, what's a pet peeve of yours? Something that gets under your skin.
That the people in Congress, both sides, choose not to get together on any topic so they could solve it. They never want to compromise, and they should, because then things could get done.
Yes.
You give a little here, you give a little there, something happens. Now
Yeah.
nothing happens.
Life is a compromise at times,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. All right. At 8 a.m. on Saturday morning, I feel fill in the blank.
I feel like I'd like to sleep another hour.
Do you rest in the morning now? Do you
You
find
know,
yourself sleeping in a little bit?
At this time in my life, that's a fact. When I was younger, there'd be things I would, want to go out and play tennis, that type of
Yeah.
thing at
Yeah.
8 o'clock in the morning.
I love it. I
I
love it.
miss being able to do that. So,
You're a well-traveled, well-read man. What is one thing you're curious about?
well, what am I curious about? Oh, boy. Well, I'm curious about who's going to be the next president.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, here, Robin put the article in there. That's fantastic with your poetry. Thank you, Robin. She's been in here, and so she put it in the chat there, Art, so people can read the poem there. What's it about?
What? I'm sorry. What's it?
What's the poem about?
Oh, the poem is called, let's see, Shadows of the Mind. It has to do with dreams. And it just
Wow.
seemed, over my lifetime, I've had some really wonderful dreams. And I started thinking about that. And in my Spanish class, our teacher, who always keeping us doing something, we were talking about dreams one night, class, because our classes are at night. And so that got me thinking about this poem. And I was finally able to put it together in English, of course, and then I translated it into Spanish for the class, obviously. So,
Wow.
but
You're something.
some great dreams, and it was just fun to put that poem together. So,
Well, thank you, Robin, for putting it in there. I will read that, Art, and I will send you this podcast when we're done here, and you share it with your Spanish class. Art, what is something that people, something about Art Ladley that people do not know about?
well, I was just talking about the fact that I've written some poems.
Yeah, yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I've written some of them about my flying adventures too. So
Well, let's
and
help get those
I
out there.
put
Yeah.
little short stories about some of my adventures too, because they're fun. When I was in high school, I don't know, you probably had to do the same thing, but we always had to do a book report in
Mm-hmm.
each class, a book report. And while I loved to read, I hated to write. I just hated it. It was just awful. I just couldn't get myself to do it. But fortunately, the last few years, maybe the last 20, I enjoy doing that. So
Good for you. Good for you. All right, let's wrap up here. Do you have a quote that you would like to end us with?
a quote.
A quote, yeah. Do you like quotes? You have something that you kind of motto or something?
Be prepared.
Simple, but true. Art, we are going to wrap up here. This was great. Any last messages you'd like to share? Any last shout outs? You mentioned your son here and your daughter Robin has been watching here. Any last shout outs?
Well, if there's any other coasties that happen to be watching this, I would just want to say hello to them. I miss them. I miss my time in the Coast Guard. It was fun.
And that power of a single experience from your counselor saying it worked out pretty good.
Very fortunate. Very fortunate.
And we're happy. We're fortunate to have you served and protect our country and the lives that you've saved. So this is Art Ladley. Art, you stay on the line a moment. Don't hang up. We are going to wrap up here on education, leadership, and beyond. This was an honor to speak to someone like Art, a captain, and served our country here. Robin, thank you for recommending your dad for the show. And Art, it was really nice to talk with you and nice to meet you.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
All right.
Appreciate being part of it.
Yeah, this was pretty cool. Art Ladley, everyone, check out the Coast Guard, check out his poem there, and keep rolling on your journey of leadership and beyond. If I could help you with anything, don't hesitate to reach out at Andrew Murata 21 on Twitter. Check out Art Ladley and his poem there. Art, thanks so much. We're going to get our music going, and I'll be right with you. Hang tight.